Hey everybody, welcome to today's video. I made this comparison video for you so we can check out the craters. The craters are gonna tell us everything about this drop. There's the entrance tunnels. It looks like the entrance tunnels have dirt piled over top of them, and this is coming from that satellite image. We'll get to the stadium in a second. I really wanna start by showing you guys this right here. That's a car. That is a Ford Raptor Bronco in comparison to about the size of one of those craters. And if you think about those craters, there's gonna be some blow off. There's gonna be some black blow off, so the actual crater itself is going to be a little bit smaller, but just for estimation, each of those craters, it's a little bit smaller than that Ford Raptor. And as we scan down, this is a 10,000 foot mansion right here. I'm pretty sure this is the Ayatollah's vacation house. We zoom in a little bit too tight and we see him out there tanning his cheeks. Could you imagine? So I'll review the rest of that video with you at the end of this video, so definitely stay to the end. And then we've got new Pentagon video on the GBU-57 bomb footage. That'll be coming up about halfway through this video, so stick around for that. And I did do a full assessment on this already. I'll link to that video in the description. This one's gonna dive deeper into the actual craters themselves and what that tells us. And then I've got some bonus material about the submarine that launched the Tomahawk missiles, and I will do a brief review of Operation Midnight Hammer in this one. But if you want a full review, go to that video that released a few days ago. I'll put the link in the description. Definitely check that out after this video. So as a refresher, 7 B-2s, those stealth bombers, and a naval sub rained hell. They dropped 14 GBU-57s, those mass ordnance penetrators, and Tomahawk cruise missiles. When the mop isn't enough, add in some cruise missiles. That's 420,000 pounds of ordnance, 74,200 pounds of explosives. That was on Natanz and Fordo, while the sub unloaded 30 Tomahawk missiles, nearly 99,000 pounds, with 30,000 pounds of explosives on Isfahan. And if you can't tell, that makes me a little bit excited. But this video will get into the nitty-gritty of likely how deep these bombs actually got, and did the bombs touch the warehouse that had the centrifuges inside of them, specifically at Fordo, because that's the ultimate goal of this mission, Operation Midnight Hammer, is to touch that warehouse-style part of the bunker and explode throughout. And I'll give you detailed explanation of how explosions work in a cavern like that. And remember, you got that leaked Defense Intelligence Agency memo claiming that Fordo centrifuges are mostly intact, so you've got doubt being spread by that person for whatever the reason is. So did the GBU-57s drill deep enough to kill Iran's nuclear dreams, or is Tehran laughing with that surprise that they have hidden underground? Stay to the end of the video for that full crater size breakdown. So it's worth noting that Iran's nuclear program has dodged sanctions and strikes for decades, and Natanz is the largest of these uranium enrichment sites, with their underground halls being buried somewhere around 50 feet with concrete and earth over top of the bunker itself. But then Fordo is the real beast because it's a fortress carved into a mountain, roughly 300 feet underneath that mountain, and it's designed to churn out weapons-grade uranium. Both of these sites were hit by Israel during Operation Rising Lion, but they focused on the surface sites since they don't have that mass ordnance penetrator. But then Operation Midnight Hammer brought the pain. 2 GBU-57s on Natanz and 12 on Fordo, and then 30 Tomahawks on Isfahan's surface facilities. That's that third facility, but they didn't need the bunker busters for that third facility. A submarine took care of that, and we'll get more into that story in a second. The GBU-57, that mass ordnance penetrator, it's a 30,000 pound beast that rips into Natanz in a blazing, earth-shattering plunge. It's essentially like a concrete crushing Casanova, yeah, I said it, tearing through stone with unstoppable swagger. And the GBU-57's got real swagger. It's not like that fake dude with the suit, the watch, the car trying to win her over. The GBU-57's more like the guy with scruff and a flannel who's got real stories to tell that she's secretly vibing with. And here's that newly released Pentagon footage of the GBU-57 that premiered at the press briefing with General Kane and Secretary of Defense Pete Hegseth. Oh yeah, you can see the fins kind of collapse in as it goes in. So this is a direct entry, so it's coming in right above, straight on, and that's the best way to penetrate a bunker, to not have any angle. And then you can see the blow off, so that's what's gonna likely echo through the halls of Fordo as the bomb strikes the top, goes through the top of the bunker. It's gotta get deeper than this. This is just the test footage, and I'll get to that here in a second. But this is exactly how it's gonna work. When that last bomb, that last GBU-57 punches its way through into that cavern, oof, you wouldn't want to be sitting there seeing that happen. Yeah, all your worst nightmares coming true right there. And then the detonation fuse looks like it goes off about 4 or 5 feet above the floor of the bunker, and that way it doesn't go all the way through the floor and then not do any damage. So it's got to go off at the exact right point, and that's what that weaponeering software that I told you about before allows you to do. So it allows you to build the bunker, choose your weapon, and then do a fly through, watching that bomb rip into that structure. So the GBU-57s wouldn't be there without that sleek, shadow-cloaked Grand Slam, the B2. The B2's just got the real deal X factor, unlike that guy who thinks his new red sports car seals the deal. But she's secretly dreaming of the rough around the edges guy with the rusty Jeep. Definitely cooler to be the rusty Jeep guy. And in this case, your rusty Jeep just happens to be a 600-mile-per-hour flying wing carrying 60,000 pounds of bombs. But besides that, it's exactly the same as a rusty Jeep. And one of the coolest things about that B2 is it's got carbon graphite radar absorbing skin. So if it didn't look cool enough as it is, you got the radar absorbent skin, you've got the deluxe package, and then it's got a quad redundant fly-by-wire system that keeps it extremely precise. And the flight controls can actually change angles to change its stealth profile. That's how advanced this thing is. So as the B2 makes its entrance toward Natanz, the GBU-57's massive size is shown as those bomb bay doors open up. And then Natanz's halls sit somewhere around 50 feet deep. That's a cakewalk for this bomb. So they put 2 on this site, and that is to make sure they get the job done. So for Natanz, you got that first bomb to punch through that 25 to 28 to 30 feet or so of concrete, rock, and steel. And then that next bomb is going to do more penetration and then make its way into that main cavern and then explode with fury and then dominate all those uranium enrichment centrifuges in the hall. So as the B2s make their way into Iranian territory, they join up with F-35s, F-22s, F-16s, and F-15Es. This strike package is unlike anything seen in recent history. They're going in to get the job done. Everybody's an athlete. You got to make it happen at this point. Now that Natanz is taken care of, the real beast rears its head, and that's Fordo with a roughly 300-foot depth and potentially 30,000 psi concrete caps and limestone dolomite rock. The GBU-57's 25-foot concrete rating scales to somewhere around 25 feet for 30,000 psi of concrete. So 6 bombs per vent shaft drop sequentially means the first bomb clears about 25 feet of concrete. The second clears the remaining 25 feet of 30,000 psi concrete. And then the third punches through conservatively, let's say 50 feet of rock and earth. That takes us to 100 feet. Bombs 3 and 4 hit, blasting through 100 more feet of rock and steel casings, bringing us to 200 feet. Now it's time for the VIPs to make their entrance. Bombs 5 and 6, each likely drilling another 50 feet, reaching the opening of the massive centrifuge warehouse at about 300 feet. And here's where things get crazy. Each shaft took 6 GBU-57s, 180,000 pounds of bombs, 31,800 pounds of explosives. With 2 shafts, that's 12 bombs total, 360,000 pounds of bombs, 63,600 pounds of explosives across both. And in an enclosed space like Fordo's underground warehouse, the blast dynamics are insane. So unlike an open air explosion where energy dissipates, a confined blast traps shockwaves, amplifying pressure and heat. So the 31,800 pounds of explosives per shaft, 63,600 pounds total, just makes me feel all warm and cozy inside talking about all these explosives. That creates a pressure wave that ricochets off steel and rock walls, shredding equipment like centrifuges and collapsing tunnels. So at 300 feet down, this blast, magnified by confinement, likely decimated any uranium production capability, turning Fordo's core into a graveyard of twisted metal and rubble. So meanwhile, while the B-2s were lighting up Natanz and Fordo, the USS Georgia, an Ohio-class guided missile sub, was prowling the Arabian Sea, ready to unleash hell on Isfahan. While the Pentagon didn't officially name the sub, sources have likely pointed towards the USS Georgia, packing up to 154 Tomahawks and lurking in the region. So picture this, deep in the sub's dimly lit control room, the air's thick with tension, like a poker game where the stakes are global. The crew's been running silent for days, dodging sonar pings from Iranian patrol boats. Every creak of the hull feels like a heartbeat. The captain, eyes locked on the periscope displays, calls for a slow ascent to periscope depth, 50 to 60 feet below the surface, where the sub's vertical launch system canisters can punch through the waves. It's a ballsy move though. Too deep and the Tomahawks misfire. Too shallow and Iran's radars might spot them. The crew's precision is surgical, balancing stealth and firepower like a tightrope walk over a volcano. Then at 2:10 a.m. Iran time, the order comes. The Georgia's at periscope depth, 50 to 60 feet down, just enough for the missile's canisters to break the surface safely. 30 Tomahawks erupt from the vertical launch system, each one a 3,300-pound beast with a 1,000-pound warhead screaming towards Isfahan's surface facilities. The control room's a symphony of focus, sonar techs, tracking threats, weapons officers, double checking coordinates, the captain watching for any sign of detection. It's like choreographing a lightning storm. The sub slips back into the depths right after launching, vanishing like a ghost, while those 30,000 pounds of explosives rain down on Iran's nuclear dreams. The USS Georgia's VLS setup doesn't need the sub to fully surface, but that 50 to 60 foot sweet spot is critical for launch stability and keeping the missile's trajectory on point. So in my opinion, looking at all the facts I've looked at, all the intel I can find, I believe those GBU-57s drilled into that 300 foot down shaft and then exploded inside that cavern, wrecking any centrifuges that were still there. If the centrifuges have been removed, now that's on Mossad to find out where they went. But let's talk about the hidden gold. Let's talk about the impact craters and how their size tells a story. So looking at each one of the vents, you can see 3 holes, and quick zoom in on the Ayatollah's vacation house one more time. Nope, he's not tanning his cheeks currently. I'm sure here in a few minutes he will be. There we go, 3 impact craters, 2 bombs going through each one of those craters. Each of those craters somewhere between 5 and 15 feet wide, so roughly about the size of that Ford Bronco Raptor. And then comparing those holes to that 10,000 square foot mansion, yeah, you can see that those are pinhole size strikes. And I did my best to estimate these sizes, guys, and I've never been known to overestimate sizes before. Why would I do that? And then a quick zoom out into the football stadium. That's a roughly 57,600 square foot stadium, 100-yard stadium. Again, you can see where those pinhole size holes would go. So not a big crater. You would typically see big craters when you look at bombs being dropped. But again, that's conventional bombs. So this is the first time these bombs have been used in combat. So I hope looking at this scale helps you guys see the vent shafts, see it pulled up to that 3,000 square foot house, see it pulled up to that 10,000 square foot Ayatollah vacation home. To me, it helps to see that these pinhole size strikes did what they were meant to do, and that is drill, baby, drill. Get down as low as you can and get into that warehouse for those uranium enrichment centrifuges. So to me, these craters back up the fact that these bombs were able to drill down, and the black blow off smoke, that makes sense to me. So to me, seeing these craters, it just adds to the ammo of these being good hits. So to me, it looks like the GBU-57s went deep, and they went deep enough to cripple Natanz and obliterate Fordo's nuclear core. So hopefully seeing this in perspective, seeing the different measurements helps you guys. And I've never been known to overestimate size before. Okay, well, at least I've never been known to overestimate size for imagery and military strikes, but other things are negotiable, right? So overall, Operation Midnight Hammer, 420,000 pounds of GBU-57s, 99,000 pounds of Tomahawks. So to me, all this intel is showing those B2 crews and everybody in that strike package did work and made the 300-foot bunker at Fordo go bye-bye. So how deep do you think the GBU-57 went at Fordo? Drop your answer in the comments below, and then the best compliment you can give me is just watch this video right here. That's the best thing you can do. It helps the channel a ton, is just watch this video right here. This is Ryan, also known as Max Afterburner, also known as the fighter pilot next door. I'll see you on this video right here. This is me signing off.